All right. So when we're talking about exercising for longevity, one of the things we have to make sure of is that we're doing motions that are going to be needed throughout our life. One of the big ones that you're going to want to do is squat down to the ground. So, like deep squats, big range of motion, the entire movement. We've got to get the entire motion of the hip, the knee, the ankle all working together. Um, that's gonna be one of those big ones because you're always gonna have to stand up, climb stairs, go up and down hills. You're gonna slip. You have to have stability in the ankles all the way up and down. So those big deep squats are gonna be a big part of it. You're gonna want to have full flexibility rotationally and downward and up in the low back pelvic function, so core functionality. You're going to have big movements there. Uh, when you're doing these, you're going to have to be able to do them, to the point where you're stretching and you're kind of pushing yourself a little bit in all the different directions. Fluid movements are going to be best. And then you're going to have to do some type of weight. You're going to have to add force to the body. You have to lift weights. You're going to have to move weight around because your body has to have that resistance in order to create bone density. It's going to have the resistance to create and maintain ligament and tendon strength, muscular strength, and be able to function all those things. So, like one of the big exercises I have everybody do is bend over, touch your toes. And as soon as they can get used to doing that, and that's where you have to start because people don't touch their toes anymore. And so you start doing that because you got to lift all the weight from your belt buckle up. So you get used to that. Then once you've gotten used to kind of bending over and touching your toes, then you add the weights in. And as you go up in weight, you want to be able to hold 20, 25-pound dumbbells, so 40 to 50 pounds total as you're bending over, touching the ground and lifting with only your back. Again, everyone who's like, you shouldn't lift with your back is no, like they have no concept of biomechanics at all because there's no way to lift anything without using your back. It's not possible because even when you do a bicep curl and you curl with your right arm, your left low back has to tighten or else you fall over. So you're always lifting with your back. Your back is a component of all lifting. And so instead of trying to, make your back as weak as possible by never exercising it, you need to actually train your back to lift. Like I see people like literally, like as a chiro, I see people every single day and they come in and they're like, my back's messed up and I don't know why. And I'm like, well, how often are you doing anything for maintenance? They're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, how often do you exercise? And they're, well, I exercise all the time. I'm like, how much are you bending over, touching your toes? How often are you bending over and rotating and touching your left side or rotating and touching your left side? And they're like, oh, I don't do that. I'm like, well, that's how you do it. So what we actually did was, this is one of the big things about Vibe 5. So if you guys aren't familiar, in Frisco, we've got a gym called Vibe 5, VYBE 5. And it's far infrared radiation, but it's direct. So it's not just getting the room hot. You're actually getting the far infrared radiation, which is so amazingly great for detoxification, for energy, for healing, for all sorts of things. So you're getting the right frequency for far infrared. So it is going to be a 97 to 100-degree room, nice and warm. But the other thing is that that'll help loosen your muscles up. But we always start with a vinyasa flow. For those of you who are not yoga people, a vinyasa, and this isn't a yoga thing, like Vibe 5 isn't a yoga thing. We do yoga in it, but and it's basically just a complete big movement patterns, gross movements to kind of get everything loosened up, get everything moving, get the lymphatics flowing, and get everything going. And the great thing about that is that if you're doing, Tai Chi or Vinyasa movement, and you start noticing, oh, my left hip or my right knee, or great, we figured out some things that we need to start working on from a balance, functionality, and strength standpoint. So whenever we notice that there's a joint that is iffy or twingy or whatever, we need to start exercising that joint and strengthening all the way around it, especially joints you've injured. Because a lot of times people are like, oh, well, I have bad ankles from XYZ. And they're like, so that's why I don't exercise. The right exercises for those damaged joints can heal them. So I talk about this all the time, but I treat a lot of football players and soccer players and baseball players who come in, they're like, oh, I have hips, knees, ankles are all messed up from put in your thing. My issue with my ankles were so messed up from playing football in high school that when I had climbed the stairs in my house, my ankles would hurt and I'd have to kind of like rest or sit down so they quit hurting. And I've heard this from lots of other athletes whose ankles or hips or knees are messed up. When I started doing single leg step ups, because my foot, my ankle had to like basically take on all of that force and pressure all by itself and deal with all that movement all by itself, it got stronger. The ligaments got tighter, everything got better. My ankles don't hurt at all anymore. And I've heard this from a lot of people. So who've come in and they're like, oh yeah, ever since I started doing the exercises you gave me, I don't hurt anymore. I'm like, sweet, awesome. Because that's a big part of the reason why we designed the exercises the way we did. And so, for instance, at Vibe 5, that's why we start with vinyasa to get everybody kind of warmed up. But we also go back to it because as you go through it, you're going to get a little bit looser each time. You're going to get a little bit deeper in those motions each time. You do those 3 times. And then the weights that come in are going to help kind of let your body understand that there is extra resistance we're going to have to deal with. So, getting those weights in is really, really important. The other thing that we've added in is kind of like a HIIT deal. It's some cardio for like 2 minutes, and you're just going to go hard. And that's, when we look at the research, HIIT training is really beneficial for functionality, for mitochondrial density. And, if you want to look at fat loss, it's great for fat loss, all those other things. But it's also great for mental function because it's supposed to suck. like that's the, like you can do cardio for 2 different reasons. Like you can go out and be like, oh, I'm going to go for a nice jog and clear my head and, feel great. Awesome. Fantastic. What cardio is also really, really good at is hurting especially if you do it hard. It sucks. And, you feel like you're going to die and your throat gets, like all that fun jazz. Like, especially if like, I've got 2 minutes and it's going to count down and we're going to hit this really, really hard for the last, 2 minutes, minute, 30 seconds, whatever it is. You're just going to go completely at it. Like give it everything you've got because you've got a short window. That is phenomenal for you. That is one of those things that, when we do difficult things, the anterior cingulate gyrus grows, like that type of thing. Like this is actually going to change who you are and change your brain and change all this functionality, for going really, really, really hard as you can for a set period of time. It's a phenomenal thing to do. We talk about cold plunges, which are great, and, saunas, which are great, and farm purpose is great. But the thing I love more about all this stuff is pushing yourself to the point where you're like, I can't, like, this is as hard as I could possibly go, and holding it there for a little bit, a minute, 2 minutes, something like that. Just really, 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 really hard. That's a fantastic way of getting through all of life. And that's the great thing about sports. It's one of those things where you're like, you push yourself really, really, really hard and you were able to do the thing. And that's a great hit of dopamine. And that's a great, example for, if you can put yourself through a tremendous amount of pain for a short period of time, when you're on the other side of it, you will be a better person. It's one of those things where you're like, okay, because once you do these type of things, like any type of hit, you go really, really, really hard. And then, over the next couple of weeks, you're going a little bit harder and a little bit harder because you get stronger. Your body responds by like, oh, we're going to have to do, intensity at this level. We need to get stronger if we can maintain it. And then what ends up happening is because you can maintain here, you can push a little bit harder, and a little bit harder, and a little bit harder. What ends up happening is that you drag everything else along with you. Everything else in your life gets dragged along with you. As soon as you're like, you were at a 6 and everything else was a 4. And then you bring yourself to, 6.5 or a 7, and everything else is a 4.5 or a 5. And so everything just kind of seems to just be dragged along by how hard you're willing to push yourself and how much pressure you're willing to endure. So, that part of it I really, really love. So that cardio piece is awesome. So those are some of the things that, like, if you're looking for what should I do for longevity, and that's, in Vibe 5 is 55 minutes, so it's basically an hour. It's guided through, that type of thing. It's dim, so you get to go at however hard you can go, because the guy next to you doesn't matter. Like the man, the woman next to you, that doesn't matter. This is your body. Like, what can you do with your stuff? This is the other great thing about building a body. No one can give it to you. No one can do the work for you. No one can take the supplements for you. No one can go to the gym for you. No one can wake up and drag your ass there for you. You can hire a coach, and the coach can, like, motivate you to go do it, but you still have to put one foot in front of the other. So, it's one of those things that it's a great function for life. So if you're looking for those things that are going to help you in life and help you give, longevity and function to the body, you want to make sure that you're doing things that are going to go through the entire range of motion. You're going to have things that are going to strengthen normal functional movements. So big steps, bending over, touching your toes, rotational function, those type of things. And you're going to want to have some weight in there, so you have some resistance on the bones and muscles and ligaments. And then I highly recommend that you find something, and maybe you can do this every day, right? So you do a little bit of HIIT, like, a great way to do it around the neighborhood is to jog and then just, dead ass run just as hard as you can possibly go for 3 mailboxes, or for, whatever the distance is, for 30 seconds. Like, set your timer and hit it and just run as hard as you can until it starts beeping. And then, hopefully you're not going to throw up, but if you do, that's fantastic. Okay. We'll walk you through that one. But that's kind of the thing is, push yourself hard, because when you push yourself physically hard and it sucks, it changes you mentally, and you can drag the rest of your life along with it. Because once you start doing hard things in one part of your life, it makes it easier to do hard things in every other aspect of your life. So, when we talk about longevity, that's where it is, because you're going to have a lot of things you're like, I don't want to do that. That's hard, but I have to do it anyway. Phenomenal. If you've, this is again, like where I love sports. If you've pushed yourself so hard that you thought you were going to throw up, or that you blacked out, or that you thought you were going to die, or, whatever, and you didn't, great. Now you've shown yourself that you're willing, that you can physically make yourself, you can decide with your mind that you're going to do these things that are really hard. And as soon as you start kind of learning that and teaching yourself that, like I said, it cascades in every other part of your life. So, that's why that's one of the reasons we designed Vibe 5. So if you guys are in Frisco, check out Vibe 5. It's fantastic. I love it. If you guys are, out trying to figure out what you're trying to do to get yourself better, look at doing something that involves those things, or do it yourself, right? Like, get some weights, go to the gym. A lot of gyms have tracks around them, so go just bust it out on the track as hard as you can for, 2 laps or a lap, or whatever works for your workout. But, try to incorporate something that really, really sucks physically for a couple minutes into your life. And as soon as you kind of start doing that, you're going to start realizing that everything else in your life, it doesn't seem like it's as hard or as bad as it used to be. But so that's kind of where that is. If you guys have any other questions, hit us up, questions@chalmerswellness.com, or drop them in the comments. Thanks for your time. What exercises do you do that suck, but you love doing? You at least love them being done. Like, once you've done them, you're like, I'm glad I did XYZ today. So drop those in the comments. I'd like to see. All right. You guys have a great day. Thanks for your time.